What's going on? It's the RapNerd, and with the Nun 2 releasing over the weekend, there's no better time than now than to rank the franchise again. So without further ado, we're just going to jump all the way into it. So at number 9, I have The Nun. I feel like this movie is just boring. The characters aren't memorable at all. I feel like it's mediocre. The scares are very, very cheap. The scripts, I don't know. I feel like they tried to go too heavy with the lore and mythology of Valak and just did more than what was necessary, and it just ended up being very boring in my opinion. Like, I fell asleep on this and I don't remember much from it, and I've had no angst to go back and rewatch it even after watching The Nun 2. This is a movie that I'm probably never going to watch again, but the only nice thing that I can say that it is a well-made movie. I think the cinematography is pretty good. I think the production value is high just because it's a blockbuster, so it's going to look good, but that's about as far as my compliments can go, and I don't want to make this a slam dunk fest. So at number 9, I have The Nun. At number 8, I have Ya Llorona, and this one is a lot similar to The Nun with how I feel. The only difference is I feel like the story is more engaging because it has to deal with a family who's fighting a demon, and they go get I'm not sure if he's a shaman, but they go get an exorcist type character to help. It's pretty straightforward as what a possession film is, and that's why I think it's not that good, because you have a myth like Ya Llorona, who is very much a legend in that culture. You know, there are so many things that they could have played with. Just the idea of how this demon came to be, I expected more, and it deserved more, honestly. You know, especially with a big budget, you know, dealing with Warner Brothers. Like, this should have been way better, and it should not have ended up being a flat, stale horror film. You know, there are a few things in here that work. I think the design for the entity is good, but that's about it, really. You know, the performances they're decent, but all in all, it's just mediocre city for me. So at number 8, Ya Llorona. At number 7, I have Annabelle. Now, this movie is funny because I know a lot of people don't like this film, but I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. I remember seeing it in the theaters, and I felt like it was very entertaining for what it was. Do I think it was the greatest story? No, but it's a popcorn horror flick that's pretty mid, if I can say it. I don't know if people don't like it because it's mid or they think it's worse. I think it's literally mid-ground. I can find some enjoyment out of it. I still actually watch it. I really do like the entity that Annabelle brings, especially at like that black demon looking thing with the horns. I thought that design was terrifying, because demonic stuff to me is the thing that really gets under my skin. Of course, there are some downers. Like, I feel like they went the magical Negro again, you know, having I forgot what her name is, but she's a legendary actress, come be the source of finding out and sacrificing yourself. Didn't like that at all. All in all, like, there's nothing really that memorable about this film, so I can see why people don't hold it to such a high esteem, but that's why it's on this part of my list. So at number 7, I have Annabelle. At number 6, I have The Conjuring 3. I think that it was nice to see the Warrens operate outside of what they're usually, you know, going for. Like, this was a mystery story that kind of spanned across the country, and it was cool to see how they work from such a wide space instead of just being in one house where they usually take place in like the first movie and the second Conjuring. So that aspect was cool. It felt like a kind of a buddy mystery film, as far as them trying to figure out why this kid ended up killing his family. And it was a nice spin on taking like real world cases and making a movie out of it. Like, honestly, I would be cool to see something else like this. It was more of a thriller, which I thought was cool. So it was kind of a different step to the right for the franchise, and a much needed one. I think it adds some flavor and texture to this whole entire universe, because it's a different type of movie than the rest of them that we've seen. I think it's shot really well. I love the opening sequence of the kid who's possessed, and all in all, I think it's a solid project. It's one that I do watch again, and I think it's a nice third film to what we've seen with the Warrens, so I really like it. So at number 6, I have Conjuring 3. At number 5, I have The Nun 2. I really enjoyed this movie. Like, it was super entertaining. I think it was shot beautifully. Gorgeous film. I mean, it looks like something of a painting, every frame. That was one of the big things that stuck out to me. I really like the thrills. I like what they did with the lore. I like how the story progressed. How you have these two storylines that kind of combine, and when they do meet, it's an explosion, like the third act. Crazy third act. Loved it. I loved that they went with the full-on mayhem of it. I love the violence on full display because it makes every character seemed like they can get it. The performances worked as well, you know. I think the creative choices it made with the scares and the kills just made it a step above, because there are some moments in this film that I definitely think are some of the best in the franchise. Totally. I mean, the newsstand scene was incredible. Just the way that it builds. It starts from such a small place and you're there with Irene to see it come to fruition. And again, the third act was nuts. Like with the creature work that they did with that, crazy. It's a little generic, but it sidesteps, you know, that generic aspect by being very creative and what the director wanted. So I actually really like that movie. I'm almost gonna say that I loved it. This, to me, is what blockbuster fantasy horror is, because we don't really get a lot of that. But when you have a studio willing to pump so much money into a film, go for it. Like, you know the CGI is gonna look good. You can do just so much with the set design. Go for it. So because of how good of a horror fantasy film it is, I have it at number 5. Now, number 4, I have Annabelle Comes Home, and I'm still trying to play around with which ones I do think is better between Comes Home and The Nun 2, because I'm not gonna lie, I really like Comes Home because it's more of a Halloween film and it feels like a goosebump movie, but just through the adult lens, and I really enjoy that. I love that it's a monster movie. I love that it takes place in one house, so it really feels claustrophobic. There's no way of getting out of there. And again, all of these monsters is popping up because these spirits are let out the box. Like, it's a fun time. I find it extremely entertaining. I watch it every year in Halloween just to get me in the spirit. And for those who don't know, you probably look at me like, how's it a Halloween movie? If you watch the scene when the two girls are in the grocery store, if you look behind to see the decor, it's Halloween stuff all around. So that to me says that this in the month of October. And I think it might be even mentioned somewhere. Don't quote me on that, but I think it is mentioned somewhere. But there's a jack-o'-lantern literally in the store, and the only time of the year that a jack-o'-lantern is in stores is during Halloween. Really love that aspect of it, and love the plot of opening the cases and just this room with all of these different spirits and stuff coming alive and what that would look like. So a ton of fun. And at number 4, I have Annabelle Comes Home. At number 3, I have The Conjuring 2. I like this film. Again, it's cut from the cloth of the first one, where the Warrens do a house call and they go to this home in London trying to figure out what's going on. And it's when the demonic presence of Valak is first introduced, and that's kind of the seeds of what goes on for the rest of the movie. And I think it does a good job of what a sequel does. It opens up a whole bunch of different doors for the franchise to go, so I definitely got to give it its credit for that. I do like the many spirits on display here. It made for a really fun ride and path to see where this all goes, and even the twist. I like how that went, where if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about, because you know they go see this girl and she seems to be okay to everybody, and even when the Warrens get there, there's a lot of fishy stuff going on. So there's a lot more mystery here than the first movie, and I like that it takes its time to craft a story, so you don't really fully see where you're going. So James Wan's direction, come on, I mean, doesn't get much better than that when it comes to horror. So at number 3, I have The Conjuring 2. Now at number 2, I have Annabelle Creation. I did a Conjuring review when The Conjuring 3 first came out, and I think I had these movies reversed, right? As far as I had Conjuring 2 at number 2, Annabelle Creation at number 3, but I'm growing to flip it, man. I think David F. Sandberg, this is his best work. Like, when he is in his bag, he is in his bag. This movie is just relentless in the tension, the scares, and what it does. This film is legitimately terrifying. There are so many different sequences that you just watch and can't help but have the tingle going up your spine as they go. He holds the camera enough for you to see things, following suit with what Juan does to really make you sit in the scene, and he does it so many times. And I just love how visual storytelling he does. Like, when you first enter the house, there are these flashes of a lot of different things that he ends up paying off later and making like a haunted version of that. Throwing the ball to the chair going up the stairs, like all of it is in your face and you don't even realize it till later. It hits even more because psychologically you remember seeing it earlier, so when it comes together, you know what's gonna happen. And I just love how he did that movie, man. I think having it at a boarding house was a great location. Having all of these many characters in this house provides a feeling of being unsafe, because in horror movies, when you have a lot of people, some shit is gonna go down. People are gonna get tormented. Some people might not even make it. The way it was written, you already know what Annabelle does, so it's cool to be ahead of the characters, knowing what Annabelle can do, and when it gets popping, it gets popping. Wow, third act again, that does not quit. I mean, it has all types of scares, from scarecrows to demons to throw in the wife and the husband who owned the boarding house, and they really tug on your heartstrings with where they're at, and you can just see the husband trying to be the strongest person he can. Great film all in all, man. Like, this to me is the second best work of the franchise. So at number 2, I have Annabelle Creation. And at number 1, no surprise, The Conjuring 1, another masterpiece from James Wan. He just knows what he's doing. I don't think this film is ever going to be beat in the franchise. Wan is a modern day horror god when it comes to this. The camera angles, the editing, the scares, the setups. To this day, the head knock with the sleepwalking girl still gets me. Beautifully done, beautifully crafted. The introduction to the Warrens, them being such likable characters. Patrick Wilson killing it. I think her name is I forgot. I'm seeing her name in my head. Her last name is Famiga, I believe. I'm bad with names, so don't take this as disrespect or anything to anybody out there. I know her face, but they just bounce off of each other so great. I don't see anybody ever being able to get the chemistry like they have for this role. The family dynamic I loved, and it's even better because usually with a movie like this, you have all of this stuff happening to the family and the dad never sees it. But they don't do that here. He is away, he's a truck driver, so he doesn't see everything. But when he does come back home, he sees everything, and that makes it even more terrifying when the whole family is involved with the scare. Nightmare fuel all the way. Like the scene when they finally confront Bathsheba in the basement and that sheet is over her head. One of the most iconic horror shots ever. That sheet rips and you see the eye through the sheet like she's a ghost with the blood stains. Wan is a master at cinematography. So many different moves like that just got seared into my head. And it's terrifying. If you've seen The Conjuring, you know what it is. So that's my ranking of the films. Let me know in the comments, how do you rank them? Be respectful as usual. My choices just do not dump on your choices, so please be kind. And if you like this kind of content, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you already are subscribed, thank you. And until next time, peace. RapNerd Productions, no capping, that's word to mommy.